selling to China. It allows chip-making companies to avoid export controls. Lawmakers are raising concerns about national security and the legality of the deal. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has a report.
After previously banning the sale of AI chips to China, Trump made a deal to allow U.S. chip makers NVIDIA and AMD to sell certain chips to China if they pay the U.S. government a slice of their profits. Under the new deal, NVIDIA and AMD will pay 15% of their revenues from China H20 chip sales to the U.S. government, this in exchange for U.S. export licenses. And yesterday, the press secretary at the White House said this type of deal could be expanded.
Right now, it stands with these two companies. Perhaps it could expand in the future to other companies. I think it's a creative idea and solution. The legality of it, the mechanics of it is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce.
Now, lawmakers in Congress aren't necessarily happy with this. Leaders of the House's Select Committee on the CCP are raising national security concerns. The ranking member wants to take action to prevent these types of deals in the future.
I'm going to introduce legislation to require congressional approval for the sale of these types of chips to the CCP and adversaries. I just asked the question, what's next? Is he going to sell aircraft carriers to them for a 15% tip? Is he going to...
And the chairman of the committee, John Molinar, a Republican, said there's a legality question at play. He said, quote, and we should not set a precedent that incentivizes the government to grant licenses to sell China technology that will enhance its AI capabilities. This deal comes at a sensitive moment in U.S.-China trade talks. The Trump administration just extended a trade truce with the regime for another 90 days. The Treasury Secretary described all of this negotiating as a chess game.
China's like a multi-level chess game. It's our biggest economic rival and our biggest military rival. So we're solving for several variables here.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping and President Trump might have a summit later this year. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss Trump's deal with chipmakers NVIDIA and AMD is Rex Lee, cybersecurity advisor at MySmartPrivacy and tech journalist. So good afternoon, Rex. As you're aware, the deal involves the two semiconductor companies getting export licenses to sell chips to China, and in exchange, they'll have to pay the U.S. government 15% of the sales revenue. I understand you've called this an unusual deal. Can you elaborate what you mean by that?
Regarding Trump's tariffs on China, we're told that we're to pay higher prices for Chinese goods like a Chinese-made television. So the reason we're told that we need to pay a tariff on these products is because China presents a national security threat. So we're told on one hand that China poses a national security threat to us and we must pay a higher price. Plus, we're also told by the White House that we're in an AI arms race with China as well, yet we're enabling AMD and NVIDIA to sell Chinese app and platform developers who infuse AI into their apps and platforms, AI intellectual property developed by companies in America. So this is definitely a highly unusual deal, and it questions whether or not China poses a national security threat if we're going to allow American-based companies to sell AI IP to China or share it. In the case of Google, Apple, and Microsoft sharing their AI IP through software developer kits to application developers in China, such as ByteDance, the developers of TikTok, who infuse AI into their social media platforms and their apps.
Can you get into the specifics here of what the risk is? What are the risks that these chips will be used in China? Is it going to be used in China's military, for example? What are the concerns?
Yes, a lot of people don't know this, but the CCP requires that any civilian company in China share IP with them through their civil military fusion program. So this AI IP will end up in the hands of the Chinese military and then weaponized against the West. We see this through social media platforms, through psychological warfare or unrestricted hybrid warfare and tech-based hybrid warfare being waged through social media platforms, whether the platforms are developed in China or not. These platforms are used to spread myths and disinformation influence elections and spread propaganda all over the world. Prior to the invention of the smartphone, it was very difficult to spread propaganda around the world. Well, today, through an AI-infused app, you can reach 2 billion people or more instantly with misinformation and propaganda through a social media platform and an AI-infused app such as TikTok or WeChat or Baidu Android apps or Temu and other apps that are developed in China.
Now, Rex, I fully understand the concerns that you raise and the potential risks, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment here. There's one analyst that I talked to on the show before that said these companies, whether you're talking NVIDIA or AMD, they need to be able to sell chips into the Chinese market in order to have the revenue, to have the money, right, to develop more advanced chips for the US. How do you feel about that?
That's a conundrum, isn't it? Is China really a national security threat? Are we really in an AI race with China if we're allowing Alphabet, the parent company of Google, Microsoft, Apple, IBM, NVIDIA, AMD to share their AI IP with these Chinese companies that are beholden to the CCP? What's more important, profits or national security? So I think there does need to be some oversight here. You can't tell me on one hand that China poses a national security threat to the United States, and then on the other hand, not only are you going to share your AI IP with them, but it's going to be infused into apps and platforms that enable Chinese app developers like ByteDance, Tencent, Alibaba, are the developer of Alibaba AI Quinn. You're allowing these companies to surveil and data mine Americans through their telephones and their computers that house these apps. So not only are you allowing these companies to develop their AI through American-made IP, but then the AI is being used and integrated into intrusive apps and platforms such as social media apps and platforms that are used for surveillance and data mining to collect that information. Not only are they collecting the information, but they're packaging it and selling it to targeted advertisers for billions of dollars, which, by the way, a lot of people don't realize this, but these companies, the revenue that they collect from their targeted advertising is exempt from the tariffs. So they're pulling trillions of dollars collectively in advertising dollars through surveillance and data mining technology that's developed or integrated into these AI-infused apps. So how is China a national security threat when I have to go out and pay a higher price for a television? Or does China pose more of a national security threat through the ability for Chinese app and platform developers to infuse AI that's developed with American-made IP for surveillance and data mining technology for targeted advertising?
I guess the core question here is, do American semiconductor companies need the Chinese market and its money in order to have the revenue to develop more advanced chips, more sophisticated chips to maintain the U.S. lead currently that it has over China?
In the end, you have to prioritize that. It's like with the protecting Americans from foreign adversarial controlled applications act, which was circumvented by Donald Trump due to the fact that that act, which was passed in 2024, banned intrusive AI-infused apps and platforms from China that included TikTok. We all heard it was the TikTok ban, but it wasn't just that. The act also included other AI-infused apps and platforms from China. So now we have to ask ourselves again, what's a higher priority? Our ability to profit from markets in China or our own national security when that AI-infused apps and platforms and technology is going to be weaponized by the Chinese military for unrestricted hybrid warfare and tech-based hybrid warfare?
What do you think of the idea that, China needs U.S. semiconductors to an extent to improve whether it's military or whatever aspect of its own ambitions, right? But if it does buy U.S. technology, it is sort of funding the U.S. government. What do you think about that idea?
Well, then again, why are we why are we imposing tariffs on Chinese goods and services in the name of national security? So if China is really our trading partner and they're not a national security threat, then I think the administration needs to get their story straight. They're either a national security threat or they're not. They're a trading partner. That's up to the priority of the U.S. government. You can't tell the citizens on one hand, we're going to raise tariffs on Chinese goods and services because they pose a national security threat and that we're in an AI arms race with China. And then on the other hand, say, well, we need them to bolster our markets and we need them for profits for our tech companies, which are the largest tech companies in the world. You can't have it both ways. So I think that the administration has to clearly make this point. They're either a trading partner and they're not a national security threat or an adversary, or they're a trading partner.
Okay, just one final question, Rex. Is the U.S. under any threat of losing its lead that it has in semiconductors or artificial intelligence? And how does the U.S. maintain that lead over the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, we're under a huge threat because if you look at the infrastructure to make these chips, China already has the manufacturing power to do so, and they already have the infrastructure in place. Today, I live in between Austin and San Antonio, and they're gearing up to manufacture a lot of these chips in the United States, but the infrastructure isn't here. It's mainly done through companies that are either housed in China or Taiwan, such as Foxconn.
Well, all right, Rex, you make a lot of great points. I just wanted to see how you would respond to some of the counter arguments. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me on, Don.
A Kenyan politician came to the United States recently and is speaking about abductions in his country. The former deputy president of Kenya says protesters